Hello, hi, a very happy good evening. So this is Krishna Ma'am. We're talking about the story of life on earth, and that's biology. So thank you so much for watching my lecture today. So today we are going to talk about a very new chapter. So based on the oaths that I have received, so I created a poll in the channel community saying which chapter to start next, whether human health and disease or human reproduction. So I got maximum votes for human reproduction, so hence we are starting this chapter. So this is nevertheless a very important chapter in your class 12. So we have to pay a lot of attention to this chapter and the chapter that follows it, that is reproductive health. So always a lot of questions come from these two chapters. So we are going to discuss this chapter of human reproduction and then move forward with your reproductive health. All right. So we'll go very slowly, so we'll go in bits and pieces in this chapter. So I have divided the topic so that it's easy for you to rewatch the lecture or video if you want to. So if it's a 20 minutes video, it is easy for you to rewatch than if it's a video or a lecture for 1 hour or 1.5 hours. So that's why I'm doing it in bits and pieces. So once again, I'm sorry for being late today. So because of a small technical glitch, so I guess I'm 7-5 minutes late. So I'm really sorry, and please don't forget to like, share and subscribe. So we are going to discuss this topic of human reproduction. Alright, so I will tell you how the design of the chapter is and how are we going to read the chapter. So what is the first topic or what is the agenda for today? Alright, so here let's go forward. So human reproduction part 1. So what are the topics that we are going to cover? So as the topic says, it's human reproduction. So before the human reproduce, so what are the things that are important? So the male and female humans have reproductive organs. So we're going to talk in detail about the male reproductive system and the female reproductive system and how the gametes are formed, that is gametogenesis. The process of formation of gametes is your gametogenesis. So once we talk in detail about the male and the female reproductive system, we are going to talk about the process of gametogenesis, how the male and the female gametes are formed. Then we are going to talk about the menstrual cycle, which happens in the females, so which happens in the primate female. So we are going to see how the menstrual cycle goes about and what are the phases in your menstrual cycle. Hi Shimpi, yes, a very happy good evening. I am doing really good, thank you. So it's an absolute pleasure to see a message pop up from you. So thank you so much, Shilpi, for joining us. I hope you're doing good. So how is your preparation going on? So are your final exams of class 11 done? So soon, it's been a year, right? So I guess you completed 11th very quickly. Is that so? So how is Munna? So are you both doing good? So once again, please do like, share and subscribe. So thank you so much, Shimpi, for joining my lecture today. Right, so then we'll talk about the menstrual cycle, and after the menstrual cycle we'll be talking about how fertilization happens, that is the process of male and female gamete meet and how the fusion happens, and once the fusion happens, how the implantation happens, followed by pregnancy and the development of the embryo. So once the embryo develops, the embryo has to come out, so that is becoming your fetus. So the fetus comes out, that is childbirth, and that is your parturition. So once the childbirth is happening, so then you have the breastfeeding, that is lactation. So this is how the entire design of the chapter is, and today we'll be talking about the male reproductive system. Alright, so let's see if we are able to finish the male reproductive system, or else I'll just give you an intro about the male reproductive system. Alright, oh yes, done, all good. Okay, so soon you're done with 11, so now you are a proper NEET student of 12, is that so? But I guess you already know a lot of 12 chapters well in advance because you have attended my class. Yes, is that so? So very good. So now I guess in between you're free and you're looking up to my classes. Very good. So thank you, Shimpi, and all the very best. Okay, so before we go into the male reproductive system, so we are going to talk about the process of reproduction, how it happens. So what order? So in the front or in the previous slide, I told you about various topics, but how does it happen? So what is the connection between them? So why is that it happening in that order, right? In that sense, the humans are sexually reproducing and they are viviparous. So in the sense that they give birth to young ones. So humans are mammals don't actually lay eggs, right? So they give birth to young ones, so they are sexually reproducing, because the first chapter in your class 12 is reproduction in organism. So where you have two modes of reproduction, sexual and asexual. So you should understand that humans are sexually reproducing and we are viviparous, that is we give birth to young ones. Right, so the reproductive events include, the first one is the formation of gametes. So in sexual reproduction, the main part is that there is fusion of male and female gametes. That is, there is fusion of two different gametes. Okay, Shimpi, fine, all right. So there is fusion of two gametes. So there are two different gametes. One is the male gamete and then there is a female gamete. Okay. So there are no classes today, so you're a bit free. So you're here, all right, very good. So that's great to have you here. Fine. So, the two different gametes have to be formed. One is the male and one is the female. So, the process of formation of gametes is gametogenesis, and in the male, the gametes are sperms, and in the female, the gamete is the ovum. Ovum is singular and ova is plural. Alright, so this is the first step in reproduction. What is it? Gametogenesis, the process of formation of gametes. Alright, the next step is that both the gametes should meet each other. So the male gamete is present inside the male reproductive organ and the female gamete is produced inside the female reproductive organ. So now both the gamete has to meet so that fertilization or fusion happens. So for which one gamete has to be motile. So out of the two gametes, one gamete has to be motile at least. So if both the gametes are motile, it's well and good. But at least one should be motile enough to travel and meet the other one, right? So only then the fertilization can happen. So transfer of sperms into the female genital tract. So in cases of humans, so mostly the sperms move into the female genital tract, and that is insemination. So when they have a sexual intercourse, the sperms move into the female genital tract, and that is the process of insemination. Alright, so once the male gamete has reached the female genital tract, so once the meeting has been done, so now the fusion happens. So now there is fusion of male and female gametes, that is fertilization, and fertilization leads to the formation of your zygote. Alright, fine. So once the zygote is formed, the zygote undergoes stages of division, because when I was teaching you cell cycle and cell division, I told you life starts from a single cell, that is zygote. So you and I were also formed from the zygote, and today how did we become a majestic organism? So even the elephant, the humongous elephant, was formed from a single cell, and how did they divide to form a multicellular organism? Which means the single cell, the zygote, undergoes multiple divisions, right? So the division that your zygote undergoes is your blastocyst stage. It undergoes a series of division like the 2-cell stage, 4-cell stage, 8-cell stage, 16-cell stage, etc. Alright, so once the blastocyst happens, it implants in the uterus of the mother. So the zygote, after it has divided into various cell stages, it gets implanted in the uterus of the mother. So that is your implantation step. Alright, so after implantation, so you have the development of the embryo. The heart should develop, the limbs should develop, the hair should develop, etc. So what is blastocyst? Okay, so here so zygote is formed, right? So once the zygote is formed, zygote is single cell, right? So all of us are formed from the single cell zygote. Even a huge elephant, huge whale, everything is formed from a zygote. But how come we are multicellular organisms today? So today we have 10^14 cells on an average. So how come from this single cell we come to have so many cells? Is because your zygote undergoes a series of division. Like this series of division, when it reaches the 8 to 16 cell stage, so when it divides like this to form the 8 to the 16 cell, that is your blastocyst. So once your blastocyst is done, it gets implanted in the wall of the uterus. Okay, so after implantation, the fetus develops. The fetus develops to grow big, so that is, it begins to form the heart, the other organs, the tubes, the foot pipe, the windpipe. Then it gradually forms it gradually starts movement. So you have heard people saying, yes, we can feel the baby kicking, right? So all that happens, and that period is 9 months. That is your gestation. So Shimpi, did you understand what is blastocyst? Yes. Alright, so finally after the embryonic development, so after the 9 months of development of the fetus inside the mother's womb, the fetus has to come out. So as the fetus begins to grow bigger, the mother's womb cannot accommodate it. At one point it has to come out, and that is your parturition. So once parturition happens, so then the mother has to breastfeed the baby, that is lactation. Right, all these events occur after puberty, because after puberty only the male and female are reproductively capable, right? So there are some physiological and physical changes which allows reproduction to happen. Alright, so there's a remarkable difference between reproductive events in the male and in the female, because a female cannot reproduce throughout her lifetime. So you have this menstrual cycle, right? The menstrual cycle in female stops at one point at the age of 50. So beyond that point, the female is not reproductive. The female becomes non-reproductive, whereas the males are reproductive till the end. That is why you would have seen kings who are very old still give birth. They marry young women and they still give birth to young princes, right? So that is the main reason men are reproductive throughout, whereas females are not so. So all these events, the 7 events that I spoke about here, they all occur after puberty. So there's a remarkable difference between the reproductive events in case of the male and in case of the female. So in male, the sperm formation continues throughout their lifetime, whereas in female, the ovum formation ceases, that is, it stops. Alright? Yeah. So what are the 7 steps in the process of reproduction? So we are talking about human reproduction. So this order is important, so you'll understand the topics very easily. So humans who are reproducing, they are sexually reproducing. So we are talking about humans. They are sexually reproducing and they are viviparous. Yes? Okay. Yes, ma'am, a very happy good evening. So thank you so much for joining my lecture today. So please do like, share and subscribe. So first step is gametogenesis. So gametogenesis is the process of formation of gametes. So in case of males, the gamete is the sperms, and in case of female, the gamete is the ovum. So ovum is singular and ova is plural. So the process of forming sperms, we call it as spermatogenesis. The process of forming the egg is called as the oogenesis. So we'll talk about this also in detail. So this is the first step. So once the gametes are produced, the gametes have to meet. Okay, so this we call it as insemination. So the first step is gametogenesis, the second step is insemination. So the male gametes, they are transferred into the female genital tract. Right, so the meeting has happened. So once the meeting has happened, the fusion happens, that is fertilization. So this is the fusion of the male and the female gamete. So the fusion of male and female gamete leads to the formation of the zygote. Fine. So once the zygote is formed, the zygote undergoes a series of division, that is blastocyst. So this is division of the zygote and that is blastocyst. Alright. So once the division of the zygote happens, the next thing that happens is implantation. So that is, the zygote gets implanted in the uterine wall of the mother. So after that, this zygote should undergo development. So that we call it as the embryonic development. So embryonic development takes about 9 months. So this period of 9 months is called as gestation. Once the embryo is fully developed inside the mother's womb, it is time for it to come out. So that is your childbirth, that is parturition. Fine. So moving further, after that you have lactation, that is when the mother breastfeeds the child. So these are the step-by-step process in your human reproduction. So before we actually talk about gametogenesis, where the male and female gametes are produced, we should understand the male reproductive organ and the female reproductive organ. So that is why we are first going to talk about the male reproductive system, then the female reproductive system, then what is spermatogenesis, then what is oogenesis, then the menstrual cycle, and so on and so forth. Alright, so far clear? No doubt? Okay. So I will just introduce male reproductive system. We'll continue it on Friday's lecture. Alright. So male reproductive system. So it is located in the pelvic region. So when I was teaching you human reproduction, exactly when we were talking about locomotion and movement, so we spoke about girdles, right? So you have the pelvic girdle and you have the pectoral girdle, right? So pectoral girdle is where your shoulder joint is, and pelvic girdle is where your thigh bone starts the articulation from, right? So that is your pelvic region, right? So when we are talking about your pelvic girdle, so we said that there are two bones, and the two bones are formed by the fusion of three bones. Where the point of fusion happens, that is where your pubic symphysis happens. So it is this pubic symphysis where your reproductive organs start. So the male reproductive organ is present in your pelvic region, alright? So your male reproductive system, so when I say system, it is not a single member, it includes many members here, alright, like it has a pair of testes, it has accessory ducts, it has glands, it has external genitalia. So you have 1, 2, 3 and 4. So you have 4 parts which make up your male reproductive system. So once again, you have a pair of testes, you have accessory ducts, you have glands, you have the external genitalia. So we are supposed to talk about each of them in detail. First, we'll be starting with your testes, alright? So before we go to the testes, so this is the structure of the male reproductive system. So we have the pair of testes here. So this is one pair, this is another pair. So we have a pair of testes, then we have glands located here, you have the external genitalia, and you have the ducts. So this tube-like passage which enables the transfer of your sperm is your duct, alright? Right. So if you look at the testis is located outside the abdominal cavity. So this is our abdominal cavity. So the pelvic region has an abdominal cavity. Usually this is your abdominal cavity. Your stomach is also in the upper abdominal cavity. So this is your abdominal cavity. But see, your testis is well below the abdominal cavity. And well below the abdominal cavity, it is enclosed in a particular pouch-like structure that is called as scrotum. Okay, so your pelvic, so your testis is well below the abdominal cavity. It is present or suspended inside a pouch called the scrotum. So why is that the testis is well below the abdominal cavity and suspended inside the scrotum is, so testis is the primary male sex organ, and testis is very important for the formation of sperms, that is the male gamete, right? And for the process of formation of sperms, the temperature should be much lower than the actual body temperature. So that is why it is away from the abdominal cavity. So it should maintain a low temperature of 2 to 2.5 degrees lower than the internal body temperature. That is the main reason your testes have to be present very below or outside the abdominal cavity. Alright? Yeah. So you have a pair of testes, you have glands, you have ducts, and you have the male genitalium. So your pair of testes is outside the abdominal cavity in a particular sac called a scrotum. So it is present here to maintain a lower temperature than the internal body temperature. So moving further and talking about the scrotum first. So we'll stop with the scrotum. So in detail about the testes, I'll continue. So in the next lecture, we'll be done with the entire male reproductive system. So your scrotum or the scrotal sac is lined by a particular muscle. So it is a pouch-like structure which holds your testes, right? So this pouch-like structure, that is your scrotum, is lined by dartos muscle and spermatic fascia. So fascia itself is a connective tissue, right? So this is what makes up your scrotum. So dartos muscle actually regulates the lower temperature, the temperature that is needed for the formation of sperms. Right? So this dartos muscle contracts during the cold season, because during the cold season already the temperature outside is less, right? And it relaxes during the warm season. So the internal of the scrotum plus the lingual canal is lined by the cremaster muscles. So if this is my scrotum, the scrotum cannot hang mid-hair. It has to also be connected to the abdominal wall. So the scrotum is also connected to the abdominal wall by the inguinal canal. So the inguinal canal plus the internal of the scrotum, they are lined by a particular group of muscle called as the cremaster muscle. Though these two are not given in your NCERT, so it's okay if you remember 2 lines extra, it's not going to do any harm. Alright, so this cremaster muscle helps in the elevation of testes. Though the testis hangs low, it is suspended, something has to hold it upright for it to function, right? So that is done by your cremaster muscles, alright. So the inguinal canal has 2 passages which connects it to the abdominal wall of the humans, right? So the 2 passages through which the inguinal canal connects to the abdominal wall are through the spermatic cords, and in the female, ligaments to the uterus. So in case of the female also, if you see, you have a structure like this, right? So this ovary, so ovary is here in case of female. So this is also connected to the uterus like this. So here it is ligaments and here we call it as inguinal canals. So that is what they are saying. So testes are connected to the scrotal sac by a flexible and elastic fiber, that is gubernaculum or mesorchium. So far what I was saying, so testis is suspended inside the scrotum. So this is the testis and this is the scrotum. So testis and the scrotum or the scrotal sac. So the scrotum is lined by the dartos muscle which regulates the temperature, plus it has the spermatic fascia. Right? So something has to connect the testis to the dartos muscle. So this is connected by an elastic fiber that is called as gubernaculum, or it also has another name that is called as mesorchium. So this is what connects the testis to the scrotal sac. So that is what is explained in this line. Alright, so testis attached to the dorsal body wall by a cord called as spermatic cords that I already told you, right? It is attached to the inguinal canals in the form of spermatic cords, alright? So the spermatic cord is elastic and it has spermatic fascia. Alright, so we will stop here and we'll talk more in detail about the male reproductive system in my next class on Friday at 4:30 p.m. So until then, I hope you guys will wait and you guys will stay tuned. And if you genuinely liked my way of teaching, so please do like, share and subscribe. And please read the corresponding portion in your NCERT so that you will be able to correlate. Alright, so stay tuned, and if you have any doubts, get back to me in the chat box or in the comment section. So I will be always most grateful to help you. So thank you for watching my lecture and stay tuned. Have a great evening and have a great day ahead. So I'll meet you on Friday. Alright, so bye and take care.